What do I have something to say about? I know Hasan is claiming that he's in the process of suing Scott Jennings. Spicy. Ghost of Ethan Klein and his influence living on, you know? Even after the failed lawsuits. Well, he's still suing iDubbbz, unfortunately. Scott Jennings doing some classic, insane Zionist dribble, hysterical slander against Hasan. Let's just play the clip.
On top of these candidates, in their own words, their surrogates are just as bad, even worse, actually. We continue today our exploration of the radical socialist streamer, Hasan Piker. Now, he's Abdul El Sayed's best friend, and he campaigns for him all the time. And African Americans out there, within the sound of my voice,
why them specifically?
Need to listen up, and you must listen carefully. This is who socialists like Abdul El Sayed choose to keep for company. Just listen to this. Hasan Piker in Cut 8.
I don't give a what black people care about. Oh, black people care about this, black people care about that. Like, shut the up. That's not how politics works. Oh, well, Hasan, how dare you? Like it or not, black people care about this issue. It's like, it's such a stupid stance. Any other black folk want to engage in radical activist language in this chat?
They're calling it the most chimped clips. I mean, it's a reaffirmation of the point, right? Cynical identity politics being weaponized to suppress progressive sentiment in a movement rather than engaging with it directly on its own terms. You'll notice the last thing that any anti-left weirdos in the Democratic Party ever want to talk about is Medicare for all. Literally, they'll talk about anything and everything other than the Go look at any interview Abdul El Sayed has had to do with a talking head. They never, ever want to talk. Same thing with Mamdani. Same thing with Mamdani. When Mamdani was running for mayorship, everyone just say Israel, 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 black voters, Israel, Israel. That's all they want to talk about. They never want to talk about any policies. They never want to engage with it. They know what they're doing, right? They understand what their job is. They serve the capitalist class. They serve the elite. They understand that it's really, really, really tough to argue with Medicare for all on an empirical policy basis. Like, everybody knows the current system is broken. We don't want to talk about solutions, so you might as well focus on this, right? Which is kind of the point being made here, right? Like in these clips, I'm just assuming Hasan is responding to claims like, well, black people voted against X, or black people don't support X candidate, which is obviously immaterial to A, the idea that those candidates' positions are correct, and B, the idea of democracy itself. Why should a person support a candidate just because black people support them? That's kind of arbitrary. Should I support Trump just because white people support him? I just don't understand. It doesn't really make any sense. Like, do you support X candidate because this demographic of people supports them or X policy? No, I support candidates and policies because I think they're good. Like, you would argue with them based on the merits of the positions themselves. But obviously, you know, Scott Jennings doesn't want to do that.
Suck my Yes, dude. It's because I'm racist. That's why. It's because I'm racist, dude. Go back to a better time when lynchings were happening. This is what I like as a black man. Are you always doing too much with black people? Leave them alone. I want to go back to lynching.
Are they really so, like, short on clips? They have to use ones that read as, like, obvious satire, even in the clip chimping? Like, that one was obviously not a straightforward advocacy for lynchings, but I guess Scott Jennings is kind of hoping the average member of his audience would interpret it that way.
Like, I get it, but relax, man. Shut the up, okay? You got me, okay? You got me, because I'm a racist person.
This stuff like that's really, really, really bottom of the barrel. I'm sure you can find clips that sound worse than that.
You just heard campaigns all the time for Abdul El Sayed in Michigan. He campaigns for other Democrats around the country. Every black voter in this country needs to listen to this. And if you look at these Democratic...
See, so this is what I mean about liberal idpol being reactionary. So obviously, anyone with like an IQ greater than 70 can watch this and understand this is a disingenuous attempt to attack Hasan over like idpol grievances. But another more sinister underlying criticism you could make of it, or I guess like a more sinister underlying problem here, is why is he implying that only black people should care if Hasan Piker is racist to black people? Why the deference to racial self-interest? is the implication that white people shouldn't care? No, I'm being serious. Like, if the real argument, let's say the argument was correct. Let's say that Hasan Piker was genuinely, openly anti-black. He's not, at least not that I'm aware of. But let's say that was true, you know? Why this, hey, black people, hey, blacks, listen up? That's weird. Like, if we believe, as liberals, if we believe that racism is morally wrong, wouldn't everyone listen? Shouldn't everyone be like the targeted group there? Because the corollary to this, the logical conclusion from the position being taken here, the implication is that people should only ever support candidates or policies based on perceived racial self-interest, meaning that it's in white people's best interests to support pro-white, anti-black candidates. Does that make any sense? Like, if he's suggesting only black people should care about anti-black racism, doesn't that imply that white people shouldn't? Therefore, white people should vote for candidates and policies that enrich them to the detriment of other groups? It's just an example of how when you like break apart these cynical attempts at invoking the id poll attacks or like racial grievance politics, it unveils the real position these so-called liberals have, which is one of essentially like racial patronage. This is how empires control their subjects. You break up their collective interests into a bunch of petty regional ethnic squabbles, so they're more mad at each other than they are at the empire. It's how Britain held India. It's basically how every empire ever has worked,
Primaries. Black voters have been voting against the socialists, only to be overruled in many cases by young, privileged white commies.
See, you continue with the infighting here. Doesn't this rhetoric go both ways? White people voted for Trump, but in 2020, white people's self-interest in voting for Trump was undermined by black people. Isn't that like a weird thing to say? Maybe you should argue for the value of candidates based on their own, like the validity of their own positions rather than just, I don't know, fomenting racial bias. Stalin drew the borders of Central Asia specifically so they'd fight each other too much to fight for independence. Yeah, and it works. It works. The hatred against your neighbor will always exceed the hatred you have for some distant, some distant colonial power, because you know your neighbor and you don't know the distant colonial power.
Might these black voters find a home in the Republican Party this fall? Well, if Democratic campaigns are adopting the Piker plan of returning our country to lynchings.
I typically don't think that slander or libel lawsuits as a public figure work out, because America has an extremely broad, deferential, legal jurisprudence there on the actual malice standard. Like, you need to really lie about a public figure in order to get like in trouble for it legally. I wonder if this will be enough. This is obviously extremely bad faith. Like, if Hasan Piker was actually bad, why make stuff up about him? I'm really not the world's biggest Hasan head here. I swear to God. It's just like, this is so obviously not about Hasan, but like the average viewer of CNN doesn't know who Hasan is, or certainly wouldn't if it wasn't for the fact they won't shut up about him. They're just trying to use him as an effigy to attack left politics in general. Abdul al-Sayed is generally likable, so instead you have to. This is literally the reason why I don't directly work with and campaign for politicians, because it leaves people open to an easy layup. I was worried about this with Mayor Katie Wilson in Seattle. Destiny figured this out years ago when he directly campaigned with a mayoral candidate for Omaha, Nebraska, and that candidate had to distance himself from Destiny due to largely bad faith attacks by proxy. You know what I mean? If I remember correctly, it was just very standard. Like, there's an internet drama man associated with this mayoral candidate. It wasn't like a salient criticism of the mayoral candidate's policies, preferences, or moral character. It was just, here's who you're associated with. At any rate, obviously super bad faith, super obvious lie here. And also, like, Scott Jennings obviously thinks very little of his viewers to suggest that Hasan wants America to return to lynchings based on the clips provided. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't even look like that in the clips.
That just might happen. Did you ever notice, by the way, how violent these people are? You have Jewish Americans say they're feeling constantly threatened by el-Sayed supporters. Now el-Sayed's best friend is out there calling for black voters to be lynched.
I'm sorry, why? Do you see the auto-translate here translated el-Sayed to al-Qaeda? That's really fucking funny.
Now el-Sayed's best friend.
It's like AI and Scott Jennings teaming up to bring down America here, you know what I mean?
Is out there calling for black voters to be lynched.
So I very, very rarely believe that this pans out. I think Hasan might actually have a case here. This is very open, willful dishonesty. You know what I mean? Like, come on. In the clip you provided, it doesn't even sound like Hasan is advocating for lynchings.
Racist. That's why. It's because I'm racist, dude. Go back to a better time when lynchings were happening. This is what I like as a black man.
That like this is an advocate. Like, it's again, it's just the hysteria of the capital class of Zionists who will do or say anything to ensure the maximum amount of rape takes place in American society.
Threatened by el-Sayed supporters. Now el-Sayed's best friend is out there calling for black voters to be lynched. Beneath all the smiles and dancing videos, there's nothing but hate and violence in the heart of these communists.
You have to demonstrate damages, though. That's true, though. I wonder how much Hasan could cite the legal threats, and I'm obviously not privy to his back end right now. Hasan is probably doing quite well because of all the notoriety that he's been enjoying, but there might be some underlying harm that he could fairly demonstrate. I'm not really sure. Maybe he couldn't. I don't know.
This was a Scott Jennings clip. This is the RNC strategy. It was the initial clip came from the...
I guess I'm not so interested in the legal specifics itself because cases like this are a bore and they drag out and who knows. It's more like we all agree that what Scott Jennings is doing here is vile and anti-democracy, right? Like, it's obviously a deliberately dishonest attempt to lie about a progressive in an effort to generally sink a progressive's campaign while he's about to go up against a Republican, Mike Rogers, by the way, so that you can then blame him for it, right? It's socially damaging.
RNC, and now Scott Jennings is highlighting it. This is such an egregious lie. It is such an egregious instance of defamation.
That being said, again, I want to be clear. I would not be surprised if Hasan was not able to make this case just because the actual malice standard is that difficult to prove.
That numerous people who fucking hate me, like literally hate me, have actually gone out to bat and said, this is the worst instance of defamation that I have seen. I hope you sue him, which I am. I'm in the process of I'm working through litigation right now. So
I do like his tie. His tie's neat. What on earth is that tie? Ties used to be a lot more playful than they are now, genuinely. Way more playful than they are now.